Hey everyone, today I need to talk to you about something serious, something that happened recently that I was asked to get personally involved in to try and help and fix. And honestly, it's a situation I never thought I'd see. A financial coach, someone I won't name, worked for an organization that I also won't name, got fired. And she's lucky if she doesn't get sued. Now, before you think this is going to be some dramatic story about embezzlement or fraud or something crazy, it's not. It's actually worse in some ways because of how avoidable it was, how stupid it was. And I'm sharing this with you because I've realized something. I've gotten complacent myself. We all have, probably. We all talk about professional boundaries and staying in our lane so often that I just assumed everyone was following the rules. I take it for granted a lot of times. But this situation reminded me that temptation exists, that people make terrible decisions, and that we need regular reminders about what we cannot do in this profession. So let me tell you what happened, and let me tell you why this should scare you into staying within your guardrails. First, let me tell you about this financial coach. She had a good job, a really good job. She was hired by a large organization to provide financial coaching and counseling to their clients. I'm talking about a legitimate professional position. The salary, just under six figures. Not quite $100,000, but close. Call it $90,000 or so. And here's the thing. When you factored in the full benefits package, the total compensation was easily over six figures. Health insurance, fully covered, retirement plan with employer matching, generous paid time off, professional development budget, all the benefits that come with working for a large established organization. Total package value, over $100,000, maybe $110,000 or more when you count everything. This wasn't some entry-level gig. This was a solid, well-paying position doing meaningful work. Financial coaching and counseling, helping people get their money right, using her skills to make a real difference. She had it made as far as I was concerned. Now, like any professional position, this job comes with rules, boundaries, things you could do and things you absolutely cannot do. And one of the big ones, the one that was crystal clear from day one, was this. You cannot do taxes. Not tax returns, not tax advice, not telling people which deductions they qualify for. Nothing related to taxes unless you're a licensed tax professional, which she was not. This wasn't buried in the fine print. This wasn't ambiguous. This was explicitly stated in her employment contract, in the employee handbook, in training sessions, in regular compliance reminders. The organization made it abundantly clear. We are not in the tax business. You are not to provide tax services. And honestly, this makes perfect sense because if you're not a licensed tax professional, you shouldn't be doing people's taxes. You could make mistakes, you could give bad advice, you could expose yourself and your employer to liability. Plus, this is important, there are tons of resources for people who need tax help. Free tax software, millions of tax preparation services, H&R Block, Jackson Hewitt, etc. VITA programs, the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program for low-income taxpayers, and free file options through the IRS. There is no shortage of ways for people to get their taxes done properly and legally. So the rule was clear. Stay out of taxes. Focus on financial coaching. Refer people to tax professionals when needed. Pretty simple, right? But here's what she did instead. When she was meeting with clients for financial coaching, which is totally legitimate within her job description, some of them would mention that they needed help with their taxes. And instead of saying, I can't help with that, but here are some great resources that you can use, she said, I can help you on the side. On the side. She started doing tax returns for clients outside of her employment, without the organization's knowledge, without any licensing or professional designation that would allow her to do this. And she charged for it. Now you might be thinking, okay, she did a few tax returns. That's bad, but not that bad. Except it wasn't a few. She did hundreds of tax returns, hundreds. Over the course of several years, she prepared tax returns for clients she met through her financial coaching work, and she made tens of thousands of dollars doing it. Let me say that again, tens of thousands of dollars in additional income from something she was explicitly prohibited from doing, something she had no license or authority to do. Now let me pause here and just say what I'm thinking. Was she thinking? You have a job paying effectively $110,000 to $120,000 in total comp. You're doing meaningful work. You have security, benefits, a career, and you risk it all for what? Maybe $30,000, $40,000 over several years? Let's be generous and say she made $50,000 doing these tax returns over 3 or 4 years. That's maybe $12,000 to $15,000 per year extra, maybe. Is that worth risking a six-figure job, a career, your professional reputation? Kind of reminds me of the University of Michigan football coach who just got fired for doing something incredibly stupid when he had the whole world in the palm of his hand. He just threw it away for the most trivial reasons. That's what happened here. She had a great situation and she threw it away for a fraction of what she was already making. Now, I'm not here to judge anyone per se, although I am kind of doing a little bit of it, but money is tight for a lot of people. And maybe she had debts. Maybe she had circumstances I don't know about. But here's the thing. When you have a good job that's leveraging your skills, helping people, paying more than most jobs, and providing a decent existence regardless of where you live, risking that for what amounts to a fraction of your annual income, it's just not worth it. Especially when the risk is so easily avoidable. All she had to do was say, I can't help with taxes, but here's a referral. That's it. That's all she had to do. So how did this come to light? Well, the organization found out because one of the customers on the side emailed her at her work email address saying, here are my tax documents for this year. Can you do my tax return again? That's when it got flagged, and that's when they found out about it. And when they investigated, they discovered she's been doing this for years. She's prepared hundreds of tax returns. She's made tens of thousands of dollars doing it, and she's been doing this for clients she met through her work. This wasn't an isolated incident. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was a systematic side business built on the back of her employment. And when the organization discovered it, they had no choice. They fired her immediately. But here's where it gets worse, much worse, because it's not just about her breaking the rules. It's about the liability she created for the organization. Think about it. Clients of this organization, people who are working with this financial coach, now expect tax services. They've come to rely on it. It's part of what they think this organization provides, but the organization never provided tax services. They explicitly told their employees not to do taxes. They're not in that business at all. So now what happens? A client has a problem with their tax return that this coach prepared. A client gets audited because of an error she made. The client owes penalties or interest because she messed up something. A client can't reach her anymore because she's been fired. What happens then? Who are they going to come to? The organization? The company that provided this financial coach to them? And the organization is going to have to say, well, we never authorized tax services. This employee acted outside her scope. We're not responsible. But try explaining that to a client who's now facing an IRS problem. Try convincing them that the organization has no liability when their employee working under the organization's name did their taxes. This is why the organization might have to sue her, not out of spite and not to be vindictive, but to create a legal record that clearly establishes that the organization never authorized tax services, that the employee acted without permission, that the organization is not liable for any tax-related issues. They need to protect themselves. And the only way to do that definitively is potentially through legal action that creates a court record. So this financial coach isn't just fired. She's potentially facing a lawsuit from her former employer, all because she couldn't say no to some extra income. This is where I got involved. The organization reached out to me to help clean up their mess a little bit, to work with their clients, to explain the situation, to help undo the damage, to make things right, to stay within the guidelines. And let me tell you, it's ugly. Clients are confused, angry, they feel misled. They have questions about their taxes that nobody can answer because the person who did them is long gone. Some of them might have errors on their returns that won't be discovered until the IRS audits them years from now. Some of them were relying on this service and now have to scramble to find legitimate tax help. It's a mess, completely avoidable mess, and I'm helping where I can, but there's only so much that can be done at this point. The damage is already done. So why am I telling you this story? Because I've realized something. I've gotten complacent. We've all said the right things that we need to say in this profession. If you need investment advice, seek a licensed financial advisor. If you need tax advice, seek a licensed tax professional. If you need legal advice, seek the help of an attorney. We're so conditioned to say these things that I just assumed everyone was following them. I took it for granted that financial coaches and counselors were staying in their lane. But this situation showed me temptation exists. Maybe it's the temptation to make extra money. Maybe it's the temptation to just help someone even when you're not qualified. Maybe it's the temptation to take on work you shouldn't because it feels good to be needed. Whatever it is, people make bad decisions. And I realized I need to remind myself and all of you about the guardrails that we operate in. Let me be crystal clear about what you can and cannot do as a financial coach or counselor. You can help people create budgets, teach financial literacy, help people understand their cash flow, provide accountability and encouragement, refer people to licensed professionals when needed, teach debt reduction strategies, help people set financial goals. And you cannot, unless you have proper licensing and designations, prepare tax returns, give specific tax advice, tell people which investments to buy, manage people's investments, provide legal advice, consult on insurance contracts, provide law, even simple contracts, or give medical advice beyond general education. This isn't complicated. Stay in your lane. When something falls outside your scope, you refer. Now, I get it. Sometimes you bump up against these guardrails. Sometimes you have to nudge people towards the right direction. You can probably talk to a tax professional about that. I can't tell you if you should take that deduction, but a CPA will definitely be able to answer that. That sounds like a legal question. You're going to probably need an attorney. And sometimes you need to push a little harder, warning someone that what they're describing might be illegal, explaining that you have a duty to break confidentiality in certain situations, and refusing to be complicit in something unethical. But these are professional judgment calls made within your scope. They're not you stepping outside your boundaries to provide services you're not qualified to provide. The line is clear. If you're not licensed to do it, then don't do it. Let's talk about the temptations you might face. The temptation of, I could make extra money. Yeah, you could, but is it worth your career, your reputation, potential legal liability? If you want to make more money, get properly licensed and certified. Expand your services within your scope. Raise your rates. Take on more clients. Don't risk everything for a little bit of side income. The next temptation? I'm just helping people. I know your heart is in the right place, but helping people the wrong way can hurt them more than it can help them. If you prepare someone's taxes without being properly trained and you make a mistake, you haven't helped them, you've hurt them. Refer them to someone qualified. That's how you help. The next temptation? Nobody will find out. This coach probably thought the same thing. She did hundreds of tax returns over several years. Surely she thought she'd get away with it. She didn't. And even if you do get away with it for a while, the risk is always there. One complaint, one audit, one person who mentions it to the wrong person. Is it worth living with that risk hanging over your head? The last temptation? It's just a little outside my scope. There's no such thing as a little outside your scope. You're either operating within your professional boundaries or you're not. But when you cross that line, you expose yourself to professional discipline, legal liability, and career-ending consequences. Don't do it. Here's what I've learned. 1, complacency is dangerous. 2, temptation is real. 3, consequences are severe. 4, you can't undo damage. 5, prevention is easy. Recovery is hard. So here's my advice. Based on this experience, know your boundaries. Review your employment agreement. Refer when you need to. Resist the temptations. Protect yourself and remember, your career is more valuable than a little bit of side income. Don't cut corners. If you ever find yourself tempted to cross the line, remember the story. Remember the coach who had everything and lost it for thousands of dollars. Thousands of dollars and more that might be at risk in a lawsuit. Remember, it's not worth it. All right, that's it for today. I hope this story serves as a wake-up call for all of us, or at least a little reminder. Stay ethical, stay professional, stay within your scope. And if you have questions about where your boundaries are, ask. Don't assume, don't guess, just ask. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.